Hello and welcome to the second video in our Introduction to Lean and Six Sigma in Hospitality series. Today we're going to be focusing on culture and the importance of adopting a continuous improvement mindset in your business. We will also look at some of the more practical lean tools you could put into place in your business straight away. Lastly, we will discuss three of the most common problem-solving methods used as part of a continuous improvement process. As a quick recap, in our last video, we looked at the differences between Lean and Six Sigma, and we stated that Lean is focused on reducing waste and Six Sigma reduces inconsistency. We looked back in history to the origins of Lean and Six Sigma, particularly in hospitality, and we looked at some of the examples of where it has been implemented successfully. Lean and Six Sigma is not just relevant for the large hospitality brands. We took a look at some of the examples of the many opportunities there are for applying this methodology in every hospitality business. Remember, it's important to understand that solutions don't need to be complex or require any investment, but the benefits can be massive. So, you've heard me use the term continuous improvement before, and it's important to understand exactly what I mean by that. Continuous improvement is a mindset, a culture in an organization where the focus is on performing better today than you did yesterday. It's not about large-scale innovations that make huge changes to your business, but don't get me wrong, these are important and they need to be designed and planned carefully. But continuous improvement is all about involving your entire team in continually making lots of small improvements to your processes, which if done correctly will generate long-lasting, sustainable benefits for your business. Perhaps it's easier to explain with a diagram. This is not a continuous improvement mindset. You can see that the customer wants a car, but they're given separate pieces of the car, which are useless on their own, but over time they get the car. A continuous improvement is more like this. It's where the customer still wants the car, but at every stage in the process they get an upgrade, from the skateboard to the scooter to the bicycle to the motorcycle, and then the car. The difference is that they can use each item they receive at every stage, and it's better than the product they had previously, and they also know an upgrade is coming. I firmly believe that the best way to ensure you have a successful continuous improvement implementation is to adopt a bottom-up and leader-led culture. It's the responsibility of leaders to ensure the right working environment and set the compass heading for success and involve the full team in achieving their goals. It's the responsibility of team members to actively engage with the leaders in a collaborative process to improve the way work gets done. Let's not forget, team members know where the problems are. They often know how to fix them too. But if leaders don't create a safe environment where they're free to challenge and change the existing processes, then it's unlikely you'll ever find a better way. Ed Catmull, the co-founder of Pixar, the company who makes those amazing animated movies, Toy Story, Finding Nemo, and others, he said, "Managers can't mandate trust and respect. This must be earned over time. What we can do is construct an environment that nurtures trusting and respectful relationships that unleashes everyone's creativity." Once a collaborative working environment has been established, it's time to choose your project and select the appropriate tools for the job. But how do you choose which tools to use? There are literally hundreds of them, and they all have their benefits and their shortcomings. To save you some time, I've chosen 6 tools that I think are the most practical, easy to use tools that will help you to quickly identify challenges in your processes and how to address them. I've been using them for several years in hospitality businesses, and I think they will adequately equip you for most of your continuous improvement projects you undertake. The first one is the Gemba Walk, and it literally means go and see. It simply requires you to go to where the work is taking place and see what's going on. Watch how the process works from the perspective of the team member completing that process. To fully understand the process, it may be necessary to ask questions from the team member, but of course you must also assure them that your presence is not to test them or to assess their performance, but simply to understand the process itself. A detailed series of observations at various times of the day or week is a useful way to collect meaningful data and to fully understand what parts of the process add value and which don't. Having an independent person conduct these observations with a fresh set of eyes is a great way to get an unbiased, unemotional assessment of the process. It's important to remember that all your processes contain waste, and you shouldn't be surprised to find that some processes can contain up to 50% waste or even more. The 8 Waste tool, also known as the Muda check, is used to categorize the non-value adding activities, which will make them easier to prioritize and address. The 8 Wastes can be remembered by using the acronym TIM-WOODS, which stands for Transport, Inventory, Motion, Waiting, Overproduction, Overprocessing, Defects, and Skills. Another tool that's effective when understanding the flow of a process is process mapping. This tool is most effective as an interactive activity involving team members from each department involved in a process. For example, if this was a housekeeping process, you would include staff from housekeeping, reception, maintenance, and possibly food and beverage too. The idea is each team writes on a post-it the steps they are responsible for in that process. It's really important that they include both the value-adding and non-value-adding steps. Each team then places these steps in order on a chart or on a wall, which creates a visual map of the entire process. Now that they can visualize the entire process from everyone's perspective, perhaps for the first time, they can really start to understand how their actions can be causing a challenge to another department, and they can start to remove some of that non-value adding activities and create a more streamlined process. The spaghetti diagram is a fun activity that's designed to identify how people or goods move around a workspace. You start by making a simple drawing of the space you're observing, and you draw the movements of the person or item with a pencil on the plan. The drawing will look like a complete mess at the end, but it will help to visualize the high and low traffic areas in the workspace. It can be a great way to review how chefs move around a kitchen, the route a room attendant takes when cleaning a bedroom, or how sales and administration staff move around their office. This can identify optimal locations for equipment, bottlenecks that cause delays, and unnecessary travel that can be wearing your staff out. Once you've identified a problem, the root cause for it may not be immediately obvious, so a root cause analysis tool is required. Again, there are several of these tools that can be used, but the simplest of all of these tools is called the 5 whys. It simply works by asking why 5 times or more to get to the root cause of the problem. Let's look at a simple example. I got caught speeding. Why? I was late for work. Why? I got up late. Why? The alarm clock didn't work. Why? The batteries were flat. Why? I forgot to replace them. So the root cause for getting caught speeding was that I forgot to replace the batteries in my alarm clock. You then determine a countermeasure to prevent it from happening again, which could be get an alarm that plugs into the mains, or set up a reminder in your phone to replace the batteries regularly so they don't run out. The last tool I want to introduce you to today is really simple. It's called the 5S. My grandmother always told us when we were kids that there's a place for everything and everything has a place. I never quite understood what she meant as a child, but it does make perfect sense. 5S stands for sort, straighten, shine, standardize, and sustain. If you look around any place of work, you'll find items that are stored for long periods of time that are no longer required, to take up space and sometimes to negatively impact the effectiveness of that department. 5S is a method of improving the organization of the workplace. It ensures that it's not cluttered with unnecessary items, and it makes the workplace more efficient. Everything should have a place. There are 3 problem-solving methods that I'm going to introduce you to today. The first one is the Six Sigma method, which is called DMAIC, which stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, and Control. Next we have Kaizen, and this is a Japanese term which simply means a change for good. Lastly, there is PDCA. It's the simplest method of all, which stands for Plan, Do, Check, and Act. DMAIC has 5 steps, each of which need to be completed before moving on to the next step. DMAIC projects tend to be large and complex, with many elements and multiple stakeholders. They can sometimes take 6 to 12 months to complete. It's a very process-driven method, and it's led by a qualified Lean Six Sigma black belt, with the support of a team of people that have yellow, green, and white belt qualifications. DMAIC relies heavily on data and statistical analysis as part of the process. We'll take a closer look at DMAIC in our housekeeping case study in the next video. Kaizen has a lot of similarities to DMAIC, but it's designed for less complex projects conducted over a shorter period of time, and it does not need to be led by a qualified black belt. It's based around a series of Kaizen events where participants work through a process to address a problem. It has 5 main features. It requires clear objectives. It needs a dedicated expert team. The process is quick and simple. It's time-bound, usually just takes about 2 to 4 weeks, so it generates quick results. PDCA is the simplest of all the problem-solving methods. It's much quicker and designed for uncomplicated projects. These projects still require a high degree of rigor, but are less reliant on data and statistical analysis and more on a practical series of activities. The first stage is to plan the activity by defining the problem and establishing the objectives. Then you move straight into the do phase, which is where you run a pilot to try out your ideas. The next step is to check. This is where you monitor progress and check that the results are in line with expectations. If they're not, you can return to the plan or the do stage. Finally, you get to the act stage, and this is the time to lock in the gains. Update the SOP, train all your team in the new processes, and most important, celebrate your success. Then you choose another project and repeat the PDCA process. So to recap what we just covered in this video, continuous improvement is simply making small improvements every day so that today's performance is better than yesterday's. The best way to implement a continuous improvement mindset in your business is through a bottom-up and leader-led culture. I shared 6 lean tools with you that will be sufficient for most projects. I presented 3 problem-solving methods. DMAIC should be used for large complex projects, Kaizen can be used for less complex projects taking 2 to 4 weeks, and PDCA can be effectively used for most of your everyday continuous improvement projects. So that takes us to the end of our second video. I hope you found it useful. In our final video, we'll take a look at a case study of a DMAIC project in a housekeeping department, and we'll also look at some methods you can use for sustaining improvements. So we'll see you then.